Hello, Ultima here. Welcome to How to Scrim in CS Source Basic Lesson 3. Today we'll be talking about how much damage each weapon deals. This is important because we need to know why we buy certain weapons. We'll talk about why people save, why they have save rounds or echo rounds, and what is the rationale behind it. To understand these things, you need to understand the damage that common weapons deal to your opponent. I'll be discussing only the weapons that will deal more than 100 damage for every hit shot on your opponent. Of course, there are other weapons that cost a lot more that deal a lot of damage, but they're not really used because they just cost too much in mid-scrims. That will just disrupt your money management, but it's actually essentially a basic lesson that will lead up to why people save and why people echo. Now in the Scrim, we'll still talk about the Glocks and the USP because they are your default guns. The USP actually deals 16 damage if you have body armor, and the Glock does 13 damage. Now if the person or the opponent you're facing does not have armor, the USP still does more damage and does an average of 32, and the Glock will do 24. So the USP is generally a more damaging gun to use. Now among the pistols, the most highest damage output pistol is still the Desert Eagle. Now the Desert Eagle can deal 159 damage if you headshot your opponent, even with a helmet. If you don't headshot your opponent, it deals 40 with armor, low 50s without armor. So the Desert Eagle is usually used as an option. It can actually serve as a very good echo round strat or safe round strat. Alright, before I continue, let me mention and remind you that we are discussing these particular weapons because each of these weapons would guarantee dealing a damage of 100 or more if you do a headshot to your opponent that does not have an helmet, but with the exception of the USP and the Glock. Now for the shotgun, the M3 is particularly interesting to talk about because it deals about 129 damage even with a helmet on if you headshot your opponent. Now if you're aiming for the body, it actually deals 105 damage if the opponent does not have any body armor. If your opponent does have body armor, it deals 90 damage. Of course the damage goes down with distance, and so I'm talking about a very close range encounter for shotguns. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the submachine guns. Now the TMP and the MP5 both deal the same damage approximately, and the TMP however is actually cheaper than the MP5. However, being cheaper, its recoil pattern is much greater and much more widespread compared to the MP5, and hence might not be so easy to control. Now both the MP5 and the TMP deal 51 damage to the head if you headshot your opponent with a helmet. Without the helmet, and if you are aiming for the body, if they have body armor on, deals about 12 damage per hit. If they do not have body armor on, it deals about 25 damage to the body. Now the rifles are essentially mostly used because they deal very high output damage and they are not very expensive to use. If the person has a helmet on and you hit a headshot, the FAMAS will do 83 damage. Of course the Galil will do 92 damage, the M4A1 will do 92 damage as well, but the AK-47 will do 111 damage even if the person has a helmet on. AK-47 has the highest damage output weapon. It costs cheaper than the M4A1, but the recoil pattern is very difficult to control. Alright, and now we move on to the sniper rifles. For the Scout, it deals about 254 damage to the head if you do a headshot with the helmet on. Now if you're aiming for the body, it takes 2 shots. However, for the AUG, regardless of whether you have armor on, deals at least more than 100 damage for all. Now, having discussed all the various damages the weapons deal, you might have a rough idea as to why you always see usually the same weapons. So I hope this gives insight into the money management, which will come up later. Yeah.